Hello everyone, Six and Out here with part 2 of our preview into the T20 World Cup being held in Australia. After covering the group stages in part 1 here, this part 2 will look at the big hitters, those teams that have already qualified into the Super 12 phase. After that, I will give my prediction on who I think will make the semi-finals and who may just end up winning it all. So stick around to the end of the video to see that. Before we get started in this video, do me a favour and go down into the comments section and put down who you think is going to win the World Cup. It can be one word or a whole paragraph. And then stick around to the end of the video to see if we are on the same page. The first 4 teams that we're going to look at are in Group 1, and that is Afghanistan, England, Australia and New Zealand. Let's have a look at Afghanistan. And the fact that Afghanistan have yet again automatically qualified into the Super 12 phase is testament to the progress that they're making as an ICC full member. This progress is reinforced by the performances that they gave in the recent Asia Cup, where they beat Bangladesh and eventual winners Sri Lanka while causing headaches throughout the tournament. There's been more than a month since their last game against India and now, so the practice matches that they have against Bangladesh and Pakistan are going to be extremely important for them to acclimatise to Australian conditions. At an average age of 24, their squad is actually quite young, but what will shine through is an intense passion for the game and for representing their country. They're going to need it because they have a big test against England first up, followed by New Zealand. Now Afghanistan's batting can be a little fragile, but in T20 superstar Rashid Khan, Mujibur Rahman and Mohammad Nabi, they have a top-line spin bowling attack that would rival any in the world. All 3 of these players regularly play in the Australian Big Bash League, and therefore they know what it takes to be successful on these wickets. It would be misleading of me, I think, to say that they would progress past the Super 12s. But to be honest, I don't think that's actually Afghanistan's end goal in this tournament. It's more about consolidating their place amongst the top teams in world cricket. Now on to the hosts, Australia. And Australia come into this World Cup with one of the most balanced sides in world cricket, and with one of the most potent bowling lineups in the world. For all the strengths that Australia possesses, there are 2 underlying issues that threaten to derail their entire campaign at home. The first issue is with Australian captain and batting opener Aaron Finch. Aaron Finch in the last 6 games has only scored 150, and that was in a spot that he's not acclimatised to typically, the middle order. To make matters even more interesting, Cameron Green, the new kid on the block, was given the opener spot during a recent series away in India, and he took it with relish. Australia will simply not drop Aaron Finch this close to the World Cup, but his performances are putting more pressure on the side and exacerbating issue 2 within this side, which is the issues that Australia are having with their middle order. The Australian middle order is just not settled. You've got players that are coming in and out of the side like Steve Smith, others that are coming off long injury layoffs like Marcus Stoinis and Mitch Marsh, and others who just aren't playing very well at the moment, like Glenn Maxwell. Perhaps the only shining lights that we've seen in these games so far, leading up to the World Cup for Australia, is the form of Matthew Wade, and the inclusion of Tim David. I liken Australia a bit to a car, and the Australian cricket team is a group of components that come together to make it successful. And they have been successful in the past. I mean, look, they just won the last World Cup, but parts of this machine are now a year older and they're misfiring. New additions and changes have been made to try and stop this, but the misfirings are still happening, and these misfirings threaten to derail the entire campaign. Runs out of the middle order is the engine of any cricket team. If you don't have runs, it's very hard for you to win a tournament. Being an Australian fan myself, I'm perhaps naturally pessimistic on an issue like this, but I do have hope for them, because for some reason they always seem to find form in World Cups. If they find form, and batsmen start making consistent runs, it's going to be a very brave man to say that they're not going to win this World Cup. They're at home, they're used to these conditions, and they're going to have a massive following all around the tournament. Now on to Australia's old enemy, England. And I think England are flying a little under the radar at the moment. Their series-winning performances over Pakistan over 7 matches shows their capability and how they could win this World Cup. There's no doubt that Johnny Bairstow is a massive out for them. But this team is made up of a lot of players that play in the BBL regularly and do very well, namely Liam Livingstone and Alex Hales. England know these conditions very well, and I just don't see many weaknesses in their side. That is, if they manage to stay fully fit. Their batting options, especially in the middle order with Stokes, Milan, Livingstone and Brooke, are formidable. Mark Wood, David Willey, Reece Topley and Adil Rashid should have a massive tournament, even if only the English press pick up on it. This might be the last World Cup for a number of these players, as we're heading towards a generational change in the squad overall. What better way for that to happen than with a deep run in this World Cup? I think they have the capability to put themselves into the latter stages of this tournament. Perhaps even they could win.
The views shared by Six and Out in this video do not reflect the views of the Australian public. England will not be permitted to win another World Cup in Australia. This man is under investigation and is a traitor. Thank you for your attention. Now back to your regular scheduled programming.
The last team in this group is New Zealand. The Black Caps are the high achievers of recent ICC tournaments, even if they have a habit, ICC Test Championship aside, of falling at the last hurdle. There is a large element of consistency within this squad, with a number of players who played in last year's tournament also playing in this one. Series wins against Ireland, Scotland, Netherlands and the West Indies shows the ability of this New Zealand side to play in this format, even if those sides are perhaps a little bit of a lower level than they are. The late withdrawal of Daryl Mitchell is a massive out because he provided a lot of lower order runs for them. But there is depth in the New Zealand ranks, with Mark Chapman the likely candidate to replace him. Question marks still form over Kane Williamson as well. Not necessarily his role as the captain in this side, but his batting. It's been a long time since he's had a good run of form in the T20 format. What you see is what you get with New Zealand. A skillful, well-rounded bowling attack. Batters that can not only score big runs, but can change gears and anchor an innings if the need arises. And it's easy to see why they do so well in these tournaments. I don't really expect anything different in this one. Nevertheless, the big hurdle for them is the finals. Can they finally fully realise their potential and win it all, getting over this hoodoo of winning in Australia in the process? Or will this be another disappointing tournament loss for the Kiwis? Now on to Group 2. And inside of Group 2 we have India, Pakistan, Bangladesh and South Africa. The first team we will look at is Bangladesh. Bangladesh's T20 side have had a rough last few months, losing a T20 series to Zimbabwe, to the West Indies, and also not winning a match in the Asia Cup, including losing to Afghanistan in the process. Losses like these can't be argued away with basic excuses like they played a better team. Bangladesh should be winning these games. The constant chatter and drama from the BCB administration about the team's performances have disrupted and undermined the progress of the squad. Some of their comments do have merit though. Watching Bangladesh, their game plan seems to lack a bit of aggression and even a slight nervousness with the bat. In a format like T20 where games can get away from you so quickly, that's a serious issue. The move to bring Mehedi Hassan Miraj, traditionally a lower order batsman, to the top seems to be a way in which to inject some more aggression into this side. Yet again it seems it's going to be vital for Shakib Al Hasan, Liton Das and perhaps even Yasser Ali this time around to lead with the bat and put some runs on the board. They're going to need them if they're going to win games in this tournament. Taskin Ahmed is without question the spearhead fast bowler in this side, but without any run support it's going to be very hard for him to be able to defend any total. Group B is such a competitive group, and Bangladesh would be hoping to beat the two teams that qualify from the first phase of this tournament. Other than that, I feel like the Asia Cup, this tournament is going to be a relatively short one for Bangladesh. Now on to many people's favourites, India. And if you ask me, if this World Cup had have happened a few months earlier, I wouldn't have even made a video. India would have been my pick to win the World Cup. Their batting lineup is perhaps the strongest in the world, experienced in setting big totals, chasing big totals, and anchoring sides, due in no small part to the experiences they've got through the IPL. But over the past 2 months, major issues have arisen in the side. The main one is out of their control, but that's injuries, namely to Ravindra Jadeja and Jasprit Bumrah, two of their mega stars. Their losses can't be made up for with simple replacements. The contribution they make is much more than that. Bumrah and Jadeja set a tone in the field, Bumrah with his bowling and Jadeja with his fielding. This was India's true X factor, an aura that made them feel unbeatable. Their replacements are deserving of their spot, don't get me wrong. But that same aura just isn't there right now. It will be most keenly felt with their pace attack. Their bowling selections lack that bit of extra pace that you need in Australia, instead relying on swing, seam and changes of pace. It's very often that these types of conditions that you rely upon go away very quickly in Australia, and if that's the case, India could go for runs. Fielding has also been an issue for this team that will compound this problem. Catches win matches, as they say. There's 2, potentially 3 players that I think could make a massive difference for this Indian squad. The first is Hardik Pandya, the second is Surya Kumar Yadav, and the third is Mohammad Shami. That is if he's picked as a replacement for Jasprit Bumrah. Hardik Pandya and Sky are real intimidators with the bat, and that's what you need in these conditions. Pandya can actually make up a bit of the difference that you lose with Bumrah with his intimidating bowling. Although he had some issues with injuries, so I think that India will probably regulate how much he's bowling. And Shami really has the experience and the success in Australian conditions that would really put this Indian team over the edge. even though that success wasn't in the T20 side. I know it kind of sounds like I'm saying that India's not going to win the World Cup, but I'm not saying that. It's just that I think the prospects of them winning are less now than they were at the start of the year. If India are going to go ahead and finally break this ICC tournament hoodoo that they seem to have at the moment, it's these small margins that are going to make all the difference. And I'm sure for the billion-plus fans that they have around the world, they would dearly love India to take back the title that they had in 2007 in Johannesburg and walk home with the World Cup again this time around. Now, onto the mercurial Pakistan. We're better to start with Pakistan than looking at their formidable pace attack that they're bringing to this World Cup that seemed to be perfect for Australian conditions. Shaheen Shah Afridi, Haris Rauf, Mohammad Hasnain and Naseem Shah. I bet they're going to love bowling in Australia. Not to mention spin bowlers like Shadab Khan and Usman Khader, who was playing for Western Australia as recently as 2019. Complementing them with the bat is perhaps the most in-form opening pair in world cricket at the moment, Mohammad Rizwan and Babar Azam. Partnerships like these ones show the consistency and the quality that their performances are showing for this side. Particularly Rizwan, who's continued this batting form all the way up to the recent games he's had in New Zealand. For all their deserved praise, these two batters will be the key wickets for oppositions, because those two batsmen are protecting a middle order which has all of the right tools but just don't seem to be firing. The case in point is their recent home series loss to England. Furthermore, Mohammad Rizwan and Babar Azam do eat up a lot of deliveries. Perhaps they feel the weight of the fortunes of the team on their shoulders. But if they don't get a good score, it indeed leaves less room for manoeuvre for this middle order and for them to get bigger scores, which is what they're after in the first place. If there's anything I've learned from watching Pakistan over the years, either in person or on TV, it's that they have the ability to beat any team in world cricket on their day. The talent is there, but it's a coin flip whether on the day that talent is going to show up, or see them wrestling defeat from the jaws of victory. That perfectly sums up how I feel about Pakistan going well in this tournament. If Babar Azam, Mohammad Rizwan and the bowling attack do their job, and somehow the middle order seems to get some runs together, they have the capability to go all the way to the finals. But if you hadn't noticed, I said a lot of ifs there, and you know, it's Pakistan, I'm not too sure. If I were a betting man, I would say they're not going to make the finals. But hey, if they prove me wrong, well, there you go. Our last team in this preview is South Africa. South Africa's squad is particularly strong going into this World Cup, headlined by Quinton de Kock, Kagiso Rabada and David Miller. South Africa's engine room took a massive hit when Rassie van der Dussen was ruled out of this tournament due to injury, but David Miller and Riley Rousseau are more than capable of making up for these lost runs, along with the young Tristan Stubbs. Their pace bowling attack is one of the best in the tournament, with a three-pronged trident of Kagiso Rabada, Lungi Ngidi and Anrek Nortje. South Africa's spin options are pretty good also. But the way that their team is often set up is that they have 5 dedicated bowlers to get through all of the overs. But what happens when one of those bowlers or more of those bowlers don't have a good day? They really lack with that 6th or 7th option. They usually go with Aiden Markram to throw his arm over for a couple of overs. The biggest issue surrounding this side is Temba Bavuma and his performances or non-performances with the bat. His poor form and non-selection in the T20 domestic league continues to cloud his spot in this side, both as a batter and as a captain as well. His poor form puts significant pressure on the rest of the side, because not only do they have to make their totals, they have to make up some of the runs that Temba didn't score himself. It doesn't help him either when Reza Hendricks is knocking the door down with good performances nearly every time he's playing for the Proteas. A bit like Aaron Finch with the Australian side, I just don't see them dropping him so close to the World Cup. It's just an issue that they're going to have to deal with throughout the World Cup. That being said, this tournament is perhaps the closest South Africa are going to get to having a home tournament without being there. Playing conditions are very similar, and places like Perth will have massive followings for them when they come and play there. I'm a big fan of South African cricket, but I don't think this time around they have the total package necessary to win the World Cup. That being said, I do think they're going to win more games than they lose, and they will probably beat some of the big sides as well. I'm earmarking India versus South Africa and Perth as one case in point. Finally, onto my predictions on who I think will reach the latter stages of this World Cup. ICC tournaments are very hard to predict, especially the T20 format, and I don't have my crystal ball anymore. I gave it away for this t-shirt. My predictions are that we will see India, Sri Lanka, Australia and England in the semi-finals. As for the eventual winners of this World Cup, I think Australia is going to do it. Now. I know that sounds like it's a bit of favouritism, but hear me out. Winning in Australia is difficult, let alone winning an ICC tournament in Australia. Australia always seem to find form in these tournaments, and they are the masters of these conditions. Australia have one of the best teams on paper in this World Cup, even if some of these players aren't in form at the moment. Therefore, it's tough to pick anyone else. But hey, If you disagree with me, please let me know in the comments. World Cups always throw up surprises, and maybe this time will be no different. But anyway, that's it for this video, and that's our preview for this World Cup wrapped up. I hope it got you pumped up for this World Cup. Thank you for making it this far. If you like this video, please leave a thumbs up below and consider subscribing for more 6 and Out content. I'll be releasing more World Cup content throughout the tournament, either on YouTube or on my other social media channels. So head over there if you'd like to follow me there as well. On that note, take care, and I'll see you soon.